Hey everyone, I am Jordan Garcia, and this is the Twitter's Hidden Gems podcast, the show where we interview, highlight, and get to know small creators on Twitter. The goal is simple. We'd like these largely undiscovered people who are incredible at what they do to move from hidden gems to discovered gems. We'll hear about their backstories, their failures, successes, and journey to make their side projects their main source of income. And who knows, we may look back a year from now only to realize that we got to interview the now widely successful content creator when they were just starting. Let's get into the interview. All right. Well, we are live. Cam, thank you for joining me, man.
Of course.
We were just talking about this, but you and I had a call last week to sort of prepare for this, but we didn't prepare. We just discussed what this would look like. So for everyone that's joining, welcome in. The entire goal behind this podcast, this video series, is to connect you with up-and-coming creators on Twitter. That's why it's called Twitter's Hidden Gems. Cam is a great person that examples this. We're highlighting people that have great content, that have a great personality, and giving you the opportunity to learn more about them, what they do, their journey, and just anything else they'd like to share. So Cam, it's great to virtually meet you. I know we talked about this last week, but I'm in the Dallas, Texas area. Where are you joining us from?
Cool. Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on, Jordan, and I just like what you're all about and what this podcast stands for. So that's pretty cool. I'm from Oregon, so Portland, Oregon area is where I'm located right now. I've lived all around Oregon and California throughout my life. So, yeah.
Nice. So you are 2 hours behind me. It's 4 p.m. my time, roughly 2 p.m. your time. This is an off-the-cuff question. What's been your favorite thing about living on the West Coast, Pacific Northwest, to be exact?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be the natural beauty. Like, there's no other place like it. I don't know. Yeah, have you ever been to Oregon?
I have, yes, but I'll get back to your answer. I'll tell you mine later.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. Just the mountains, the trees. I've experienced the beach, the forest. I prefer definitely the mountains and the forest and that style. Although I appreciate going to the beach as well and having that within driving distance. But yeah, it's definitely the nature for me, just being able to get out.
No doubt. And yes, my wife and I, you and I talked about this briefly last week, but my wife and I, we honeymooned in Oregon and then in Washington. So I spent a lot of time in Portland and then moving up to Washington as well and rented a cabin in the middle of nowhere. And you're right, dude. The scenery, the aspects of nature, the beauty that you guys have up there, unparalleled. And as a Texan, it's flat down here, man. We have nothing. We have no mountains. We have nothing over here. So when I get away, I prefer to get away to places that have like the geographical makeup that the Pacific Northwest does. It's amazing. Yeah. But I don't like the question, how are you? So I'll ask you something different. What's been the highlight of your week thus far?
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I would say it's been, I dealt with a client today and that was really rewarding for me because we have a few clients that are super elderly. They don't do even email, that type of thing. So they'll call in with questions or worries and just being able to deal with them and really, I guess, make them feel more comfortable with their finances and things like that. That's what happened today, actually. So that was pretty rewarding.
I love to hear that, man. So if they're not really email savvy or tech savvy, how do they typically find you guys?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So typically they'll find us locally, and that's, going into my backstory is I've built this business with a partner, fully in person, with a little bit of local SEO was the only thing, we did a little website type of stuff, but really it's been entirely in person and just driving growth that way for local individuals and businesses.
I love that, man. I think that's It doesn't get better than that. And I realized before I asked that question, I apologize. I should have asked you to tell us who you are, what you do. My bad, audience. Sorry, everybody. I know what Cam does on a surface level understanding, but Cam, sorry, fill us in. What do you do, and how? Not how did you get into it? Because I'll ask that later. But who are you, and what do you do? So when you said business, it'll make more sense to the listeners.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm a financial planner. I work for myself and, a partner. And we help people with managing their finances, building wealth, maintaining wealth, reducing taxes, all those good things that a lot of people start snoring at when they hear it, but can make you millions of dollars in the long run. So,
Absolutely. It makes perfect sense. And it's really cool. I want to highlight one thing for anyone that's listening or watching. Cam and I connected on Twitter, of course. And I think there are some people on Twitter that are in a specific niche, whether it's copywriting or productivity or mindset. And when they see someone else on Twitter that is in the same space as them, they can view them as a competitor, an enemy, someone that they should, I don't know, keep on some kind of list to watch out for. What I love about Cam and the way that we connected, and honestly, other folks in the finance space on Twitter as well, is they're very collaborative. They don't look at each other. We don't look at each other as enemies, competitors, people that we need to watch out for. It's a very collaborative, open-minded, hey, we all have a lot of things to contribute, and it's a very supportive group. And it's why I wanted to launch this podcast, because there are such awesome people that haven't really been discovered. They've been discovered, but you know what I mean. They don't have 100,000 followers yet. They will in the future, I'm sure. But I love that, and so Cam and I actually occupy a similar niche. I'm a different, of course, because I don't do what Cam does for a living. I do mine all on the side, and I do more personal finance coaching. But Cam, it's great that you are open to the collaboration. I look at all this as like the all boats rise with the tide kind of thing. So to me,
exactly.
we all win, and by supporting each other and being encouraging. So glad you were open to coming on. Thanks for sharing what you do. Before we get into it further, actually, I wanted to kick us off with just a few rapid fire questions. You don't have these in front of you. They're just coming from me, but I want to just have a quick little brain teaser, not brain teaser, but warming up the brain. So I'll start with some rapid fire questions and just hit me with
Yeah.
whatever comes to mind. Okay.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee all the way. I'm addicted.
Do you drink it black or with cream and sugar?
Black mainly. It's a family thing, and they got me addicted to that. I don't know why I hate it, but I love it.
No,
It's that type
I
of
love it
thing.
too. I drink
Yeah.
my coffee black as well. So I'm with you on this one. Okay. Books or movies? Be honest.
Movies, honestly, yeah. So I do think books have a place, but at with the life that I live, I listen to audiobooks more than anything, or podcasts. Like, I don't have time to sit down and read a book, and that's really bad to say. And Twitter's
No,
probably going to hate me for that. But yeah, I'm much more of a audio or visual. As far as movies, that is perfect as well. But to me, I personally listen to more documentary, or that style. Yeah,
hands down. And that's why I said be honest, because I know Twitter has this thing where it's like, if you're not reading 6 books a day, what are you
I
even
know.
doing? Screw that. I prefer movies as well. I'll read books, but I prefer movies as well. I'm with you. All
Yeah.
right. Chinese or Italian food?
Woo, that's a see. I'm a lover of all foods. I don't. Yeah, I'm not one side, but I would have to say Italian because that's in my blood. So, yep.
Right on. Okay. So then diving a little deeper, what dish do you defer to if you had to pick one?
I would say just a really good, fettuccine alfredo, or something along those lines. Yeah.
Nice. All right. I got two more. Jazz or classical music?
Classical, when I'm trying to focus and work, that's the only thing I can listen to. Yeah.
All right. All right. And then the last one, would you rather call or text?
Text for me. I would either rather be in person or text. Over the phone talking, it doesn't always work for me.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Well, sweet. I just wanted to get us started with that, get the brain going a little bit, and it's fun. The whoever's listening, whoever's trying to get to know both of us or either of us, it's cool to just let them know that we drink black coffee, and that's the only way to drink coffee. And if they are not on board with that, then they should be on board. But Before we move on, I just wanted to also note, you and I have talked about this even before we jumped on this call. We you agreed to it. I wanted this podcast to be as just raw and unedited as possible. So if we make mistakes, if we get into stuff where we stumble, say or whatever, it is what it is. I'm not going to edit anything out, even if I catastrophically just suck at something throughout this time. So I want this to be as just comfortable, as open, as authentic of a podcast as possible. And again, as much as you're willing to share, we'll get into. And I wanted to verbalize that before we go into it, because the goal of it is to number one, facilitate a connection between you and I. Like, it's great to connect with you, man. And I've seen your tweets for so long. I think we've been following, not for so long, but we've been following each other for a little while now. So it's really good to get this out and meet each other, talk about things. And then secondly, I really want people to be able to understand who you are and why, if ever they'd like to work with you in the future, how they can do it, and just know who you are, the person behind the screen. I think it's really easy to fake things on Twitter. Anybody can update their bio. They can update whatever, they can give a testimonial, and I just learned as of today, people fake testimonials. That's a new thing to me.
That's
People
criminal.
will, yes, they'll like post a screenshot that they took of like their own phone, and we're like, oh my god, it was great working with you. And so I just learned that that's a thing today. It's mind numbing to me people would do that. And so again, just to peek behind the curtain, I don't think you're a guy that would do that, and I don't think anybody that follows you thinks that, but I learned that's a thing. So getting into the business aspect of what's going on in your world, you told us what you do. How did you get into it?
Yeah, that's a a short question, but a long answer. So basically, this goes back to, growing up. I had two things that I was always focused on. Right, I was always focused on. I wanted to own my own business. I didn't want to do it like everyone else. I knew I wasn't going to be in a corporate job. At the very least, I wanted to own my own business. I would rather make less money doing it. And I knew that from a very, very young age. I can remember being 10 or 12 and really wanting to start my own business. And second thing is, I always wanted to help people. So my family was a mixture of, some of them were entrepreneurs and business owners, and some of them were in the medical field. And so my thought immediately was, hey, I can start my own business and be helping people by being a family physician, something along those lines. So I went to school even throughout college, thinking I was going to be a doctor, dentist, something small, business owner along those lines. But all this time, all throughout my life, I was really good with numbers, really good with math, and had a passion for personal finance, the markets. I fell in love with it from a young age as well. My dad kind of taught me about that. So yeah, that I guess coming back to your question, I got into it right after college, right? So after college, I was applying for medical school, dental school, things like that, and I just realized, I'm not going to do this. I don't care about this. I'm not motivated to study. Even in my senior year, I was watching more YouTube videos on investing and personal finance than I ever studied for medicine or anything like that. I had no passion for it. Yeah. So I basically just took it and went with it. I dropped everything for medical school, and I just started driving DoorDash to make money. And just trying to figure out how to own my own business, how to start this financial advisory thing up. And that's really how I got into it. And I can go into more detail, but I'll let you cut in here and see what you...
No, it's incredibly interesting, because I've heard of other folks that started, the inception point of what they were really about to get into really came in a period of life where they were driving for DoorDash, they were delivering for Postmates, they were doing something on the gig economy side, like the side hustle side. And they would use that time to listen to podcasts, listen to audiobooks. So I got to ask you, when you were driving for this, did you use a lot of that time to learn and develop that game plan for how you got into what you're into now?
100%. You nailed it. I mean, I never listened to a song when I was doing DoorDash. I'll put it that way. Yeah. Audiobooks, podcasts, even if it wasn't directly related to investing or finance, it was something that was making me a better person in some way, or just, yeah, improve, just self-improvement, stuff like that, is a huge part of whatever you're going to do, because that discipline translates to any career, anything across any industry. So yeah, you're 100% spot on. I spent all my time doing that. And then even then I was working, right, like 7 or 8, 9 hours a day doing DoorDash. But then even after that, when I would get off, I would go into something in more depth that, a question might have come to my mind when I was listening to the podcast while I was driving, couldn't really do anything. So I would go dive deeper into it after work.
Yeah, that makes sense. Curious though, I used to drive for Postmates when I first moved to Dallas. So my wife and I, we moved in 2018. We were both aggressively, and still are aggressively, trying to pay off our student loans. So we both came from families that couldn't afford to send us to college, and we had to borrow our way through school. And we both worked career jobs in the daytime, and then we would tag team. I was driving for Postmates at night, so she'd be in the driver's seat, I'd be in the passenger. I'd run in, grab the food, go back to and she'd drive to the next location, and we would just deliver food super efficiently that way. So I did this, and I remember feeling when I would walk up to these people's houses and hand them their food. Honestly, man, I felt less than at times, because they were often wealthier people, or they lived in nice neighborhoods, and I felt like a scrub walking up to their house, handing them food. Almost like in the back of my head, I wanted to tell them, like, no, but wait, I have a career, and no, wait, I have a degree. I'm just doing this for extra money. Did you ever feel any sort of way that resembles the way I felt whenever I was delivering food to people, even though I had a career job? Both my wife and I had career jobs, but we were doing this for extra money, and I still kind of felt that inferiority. Did you ever feel anything like that when you knew all the dreams that were in your head, but then you were handing food to people? Did you ever have moments like that?
1,000%, man. And you nailed it. It's that feeling of less than. I mean, honestly, I had just come off of graduating with a summa cum laude. So, I mean, a very good GPA. Like, I was going to go to medical school. I felt very highly of myself up until this point. And then everything dropped, and I was working for DoorDash. I was still in my college town at that point, so it was even more so. I would deliver to people I knew, and I was like, how do I? Yeah, I mean, that same thing. Hey, wait, this is just something I'm doing before while I'm building up my business. But yeah, it really does make you feel less than, and I never found a way to really conquer that other than just keep on going. I mean, keep on working.
Yeah, that's the only thing that got me through as well. I didn't figure out a way to get past those emotions. I wished I did, but like you, I just kept going, and then you end up in a better spot, and you realize that played a really cool part in your season of life, and it probably laid some foundational work for where you are now. But I wanted to ask that because I definitely felt that way, and I remember just feeling like this. I wish you could see all the plans I had in my head, because when I get these plans out into the open and they actually become real, you won't laugh at me. I won't just be a DoorDasher. I won't
Yeah.
just be a Postmater. Like, you'll
Yeah.
understand. And so it's like that being able to deal with where you are, but where you want to go and where you know that you're going to go, that takes a certain kind of mental resilience, man. And it sounds like you made it. Not sounds like, I know you made it through that because of where you are now. So take me through, how long were you door dashing, and then what officially led to you being able to set door dashing down and pick up the work you're in officially?
Yeah, so it was kind of a long transition. So I was even working for DoorDash a little bit while I was in college, just a few hours. But then when I made that full time transition, I probably worked there or doing that for over a year and a half, maybe 2 years even. And at that point, I was studying, for licensing, planning what I was going to do before even studying for licensing. I had to figure out, how does someone become a financial planner, a financial advisor, and how do you go about that, and how should I even approach it? You can go to a big firm and do it. You can try to start your own thing, but it's really risky, and everyone says don't do that, type of thing. So yeah, it was a long time of studying, getting the licenses and that type of thing. And then even then, I had my license, and I had gone and reached out to local advisors, people who are doing the real world stuff. I was literally just knocking on their doors and saying, "Hey, I love your practice. How did you do this? Do you have any insights for somebody who wants to be in your position?" And that, I think, was the number one key, which was really hard for me because I had always considered myself an introvert, an intellectual. Like I don't like going out. I didn't like partying in college. I mean, I did it, but I didn't, I wasn't like a big party guy.
Sure.
Um, so that was really tough for me, was getting out and knocking on strangers' doors essentially, and trying to get some connection to get leverage to get into the industry. And that's actually what really jump started my success.
Man, that's tough. I did cold calling for 3 years after college, but I didn't do door knocking. That's a different level of nerves, I'm sure, that you had to face as you're knocking on people's doors. Did you get any doors slammed on you, or did you get any outright rejections, or were people pretty friendly?
No, no. So yeah, I mean, and at this point, I'm talking about knocking on doors of advisory firms. So like local advisors. Yeah, nobody slammed the door on me. But there were some, less than friendly people. Especially with the bigger broker dealers and advisory firms. They weren't willing to share anything with me. They didn't want me to get any sort of edge, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. So what changed? Where was the breaking point? Did you just gather enough information from someone to just have the confidence to launch your own, or was there someone that mentored you and walked you through how to do it?
Exactly that. So the second one, after enough times of just knocking and getting information and building that bank of information, essentially, I finally found one guy that was very receptive. We connected immediately. He was very receptive and helping me, that type of thing. So he essentially, it was a long process and it wasn't overnight, but he essentially turned into my mentor, and we started working together and then partnered up finally.
Right on. So you're partnered with him now.
Yes, exactly.
Really cool. But that opportunity wouldn't have been available had you not knocked on doors, right?
Exactly. So I always like to say I put myself in the right position, but it was pure luck. I mean, it was pure luck, but it wouldn't have happened if I didn't put in the work and the time and had my sights on what my plan was, what my goal was.
Absolutely. I love that, dude. And I'm glad that there's someone out there that mentored you, that took you in, did all that stuff. I made a post about this on Twitter today, but I don't believe that people are self-made people. I think there are tons of others that have such a direct impact on how far we do go. And do you need the drive? Absolutely. You had to be knocking doors. That had to happen. But it took somebody saying, yeah, we'll work together. I'll walk you through it. I'll mentor you. And I'm glad that that happened for your life as well. Next question. And I don't want to I know we're going down this not rabbit hole, but down the depths of how you got into it. But I'm curious now, and you're in the role. Hit me with what your favorite thing is about what you do. But then on the opposite side, what's your least favorite thing about the work that you do?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So my favorite thing, of course, is working with individuals and actually, well, two sides. I love the numbers side. I love working with the numbers and calculating all these different, financial plans, but then actually presenting the financial plans to people, telling them how this, little change in their, what retirement account they're contributing to, or some little change in their taxes or business structure, whatever it is, can make an impact of hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, and that is just so rewarding to me. But more than anything, just making friends with my clients. I never really put two and two together. I didn't think at first like, oh, these people are all going to be my friends. I thought, oh, these are going to be my clients. But even after a few conversations, I've made friends with every single one of my clients. Like it's a
Yeah,
beautiful thing.
I love that, man. And I think that that's the right way to approach client relationships. And for the folks that don't do that, I feel like they miss out on meaningful connections because, yes, there's an official transaction that's taking place, but it doesn't have to feel that way. and
Yeah.
you don't have to keep someone at arm's length. So I love your approach to that. I agree with that approach. So that's your favorite thing. Hit me with your least favorite thing. If you can tell me, I don't want you to be in
Yeah.
trouble if one of your clients sees this interview.
No, no. I mean, this is kind of like a bland answer, but the paperwork, surprisingly, a lot of the financial stuff is still in paper, even with the most technologically advanced brokers and custodians. There's still a lot of physical paperwork that has to be done, even with things like a 401k rollover. There's so much paperwork, calling the 1-800 number and
Yes.
just getting on the phone. I mean, it takes, like, sometimes I will spend 2 to 3 hours with a client calling, their old annuities and their old life insurance and all these things that they didn't need to begin with, just trying to get them out of it. So yeah, that is definitely the worst thing.
Oh, dude. I just did this for my wife. I just rolled her 401k over. Holy cow, this resonates. It takes so
It's
long.
not easy. Yeah.
It's such a clunky process, and then the paperwork they have you fill out is not easy to read. It's not always easy to understand, and you have to enter a lot of redundant information. And I'm thinking to myself, surely there has to be a more efficient way to do this process. This is terrible. So, dude, on a smaller scale, again, I've done it for one person, my wife. I feel you. That sucks because I dislike that. It took me like 2 to 3 hours to get this worked out ourselves. So that sucks.
Yeah, exactly. And each one is unique and different. Not any one is the same too. So you can imagine that it's just a hassle. And the crazy thing is, like you said, there should be a better way. There really isn't. So that's an opportunity for somebody out there to go make a big difference in the 401k rollover space.
Yes, all you folks looking to launch a business to help 401k rollovers to be more seamless,
Yeah,
take it up, do it.
we need it. We need it.
So we met on Twitter. How long have you been active on Twitter? And when did you decide you wanted to start building an audience? For lack of better words, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Yeah. So uh, I believe it was February 9th, somewhere around there is when I started really being active. Before that, I used Twitter. Of course, when I was in high school, I had a Twitter, but that was, years and years and years ago. One
Right.
thing I didn't mention is during the period when I was building the business, I basically cut out, and doing DoorDash, I cut out all social media. It was unhealthy for me. I used, Instagram and those type of things up until college. After college, I just said, I can't do it. I was too much of the comparing to other people that were my same age making hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever. And I was just
Yeah.
like, this is overwhelming. I can't do it. So I cut out social media altogether. Now, very recently, of course, in February, I got back on Twitter, and right then, was starting to think about building a personal brand, essentially, as a way to, not only just a long-term personal brand, but hopefully get clients as well, through Twitter, because it's more my ideal client is somebody younger who's an entrepreneur, wants to do their own thing just like me. So it's
Absolutely.
really a good place for that.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. And with you getting or becoming active in February, what's been one of your biggest challenges in all of it? I think a lot of the small creators that are listening, and myself included, will have thoughts on this as well. But what has been one of your largest challenges in maintaining this Twitter journey, building a brand?
For me, content creation. I I mean, I have the ideas, and I can make little short form tweets. That's easy, but making the more long form content for me, as I've never considered myself a writer. I still don't consider myself a writer by any means. I really honestly hated writing classes or any English classes. I liked math, that was my thing. But now that I think back, I really did like persuasive writing. That was the one thing that I could get behind because it was logical. It had, A plus B equals C, and this is why, and there's evidence here. So
Yeah.
I really always like persuasive writing, and so I tried to look at Twitter as the same. But yeah, so content creation and just the number of tweets and the various ideas of tweets has been tough for me, definitely.
I think everyone listening, and then myself included, can give a collective amen to that, because that's the struggle. I struggle with the same thing. Content creation. What am I going to say? How am I going to say it? And when I first started, I think I started in January. I had no idea. I literally had a goal to make one post per day, and it was difficult for me to hit that. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to say things, and I just kept trying and iterating, and then eventually I think I'm at the place now where if I were to look at metrics, I can average 2 a day. But man, hitting that one post a day at the beginning was difficult for me. So I'm with you on this. Content creation is the difficult part. And then it gets into how much of your personality do you want to show? Do you want to just have listicles or helpful tweets, or do you want to be the personality guy? And I know the answer, I think I posted about this the other day. There's probably a balance in the middle to strike. But dude, I think everyone listening, myself included, this is the difficult part right here, is figuring out that Twitter content creation system. I'm not doing a plug for him, but I actually just bought Justin Welsh's content creator course. I think it's called the Content Operating System. I just bought that recently, and I'm getting into the lessons. It's really good. This is not a plug for him. I definitely don't have sponsorships, or I'm not paid by anybody. But I bought that for this specific reason. I've struggled with it, and I'm looking forward to getting more into the content, so I can learn what some of the greats are doing. But
Yeah.
thanks for sharing that, man. Another question for you. You've been an advocate for building relationships. You do this on Twitter. You've built a little community, I'm sure. So when did things change for you? When did you stop doing Twitter solo and start realizing, man, I need to make connections with people?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you were going to ask me what's the number one advice I would have had, I would have said create little communities with your peers. That is the most powerful thing. I don't really know when it happened. I think it kind of came up naturally, and I just started falling into what worked. My initial approach was, of course, shoot a million arrows, see what lands, and go for that all, 100%. So when I started DMing, people that were just about my size, a little bigger, a little smaller, something around there, and just anyone who seemed like they are putting in the effort, like you're tweeting constantly, you have a good profile, people that have, are commenting, putting in effort to Twitter. I would just DM them and say, hey, I like your content, be genuine and say, I really enjoy what you're doing, and I would love to connect, type of thing, but just be genuine, and then from there, you can take all these people you've connected with and put them together in a group, and then not only they'll be super appreciative for you for doing that, but then it'll benefit you as well. So it's total win-win for everybody, and that's how I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've made more connections in the finance Twitter space because of you. You've put a group together. I think there's maybe about eight to 10 of us in there, and
Yeah.
we support each other. We like each other's posts, not as some engagement community, but just as a genuine support group for each other. We're all on a similar journey. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's really cool. I love to hear that. The revelation, the light bulbs for me didn't click until mid-February. I was doing Twitter solo for a month and a half, and then I kept seeing people talk about DMing others, and I was thinking, well, I don't have a product or a service, so I'm just going to keep doing my own thing. And then as I gained a few more followers, some people started DMing me. So I looked into this, man, because I didn't DM a lot of people myself. I was on the receiving end, and then I was able to cultivate from receiving a DM a relationship, and I'm grateful for that. I need to do a better job of sending more DMs to others, but I don't want to be that guy that, like, I get DMs sometimes from people now that are like, I really enjoy your content. I love what you're doing, and they don't follow me, and I'm thinking, like, okay,
That's
did you
not
just look at my
genuine.
profile? Yeah, like, did you just like look at my profile for a split second and say that? Like, that feels like a template DM email, not email, a template DM that you're sending to a lot of people. I think you want them to come look at your profile so that they'll follow you. But yeah, anytime someone says, I'm really enjoying your content, keep up the good work, I love what you're doing, but they're not following me, it's like, so you enjoyed enough to send me this message, but not to follow me? I mean, this is weird. If you really enjoyed it, we would follow each other. Anyhow, I
Yeah, no,
digress.
that's the key, is it has to be something genuine, and like you're saying, they would be following you if they really thought that. So yeah, that's definitely a red flag.
Yeah, I think so too. This is the last business question. We'll get into like two or three personal, and then we'll wrap it up. What are some must-have tools, whether they're digital, physical? What are some must-have tools that you would recommend? Let me back up. What are some must-have tools that you need for the job that you do, the work that you do? Is there a specific software or hardware or piece of physical tools that you use on a daily basis?
Yeah. So this is definitely one of the areas that I brought a lot of expertise to the business. Just as my business partner was doing it since 2005. He was a much older generation where the whole business was much different back then, right? And so his website at the time that I came on was literally looked like a Google Doc, just straight writing, like nothing else. It was horrible. Didn't convert anybody, type of thing. So one thing I did was just revamp the website, that type of thing. But then as far as the softwares as well, he had no financial planning software. So I got, the best in class financial planning software through Right Capital. He had, a very good but very old style custodian. So the people that actually hold the money, like a broker. That I got a new custodian now, Altruist, who is the tech savvy, best in class type of thing. So that's what I've been working on, or I did work on, especially in the beginning of working with him, was basically digitalizing the whole business and elevating it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I would imagine if we have any younger folks listening, they would call this person a boomer
Yeah,
for having a Google Doc website. I
yeah,
pick, but this is really cool because I would imagine that would benefit a lot of people that need a partner to bring some youth, some life, some 21st century marketing efforts to their business. Right on. That's really cool. All right, I'm going to get out of business questions for a little bit. We'll land with some personal, and then we'll conclude. But I'm curious. Everyone talks about their morning routine on Twitter. Give me the non-Twitter approved. Give me the real version. What does your morning routine look like?
yeah. And see, for me, it's very spotty. So it is not Twitter approved, as you said. So it's not predictable for me. I do always include a few things. I have coffee every morning. I do deep work in the morning, as a lot of people recommend. That's my time when I'm hyper focused, and that's when I get the most done. So I do get the majority of my actual work done in the morning, creative or otherwise, and I always have that coffee with me.
I'm with you on that, dude. Coffee every morning. I've been trying. Everyone talks about not having coffee when you first wake up. I've been reading about that more since I've been active on Twitter. So I've been trying to drink it 90 minutes after I wake up. I can't tell the difference yet, but apparently there's a lot of benefits to it. I don't know. I'm just trying it out. So another question. You can pass on this if you'd like, but I would like to ask, in your journey thus far as a business owner, as a partner in what you're doing, what has been your biggest failure, and what did you learn from that experience? If there is a failure, or it could be embarrassing moment, it could be something that
Yeah.
didn't go well. What's been one of those situations for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously had a million failures, too many to think of. Um, and yeah, embarrassing. I'm trying to think of a good one. I mean, I would say my biggest failure really came um, from, for me, it was after school. It was related to my career, right? Career choices. So I always, as an individual, put so much pressure on myself to have a good career. That was my number one. They say the eternal markets, health, wealth, and relationships. I
Mm-hmm.
was only focused on wealth, and not in the sense of getting rich, but just having a career that I could depend on and I could make myself money. You know,
Right.
um, and so for me, the biggest failure was dropping medical school and dropping all that and doing DoorDash, and like you said, just feel less than and just really, that was really just crushing for me. I felt like I was nothing. I'd worked all my life for, when you're growing up and they tell you, you're in elementary school, you better watch out. Middle school is really tough. And then middle school, they're talking about high school. High school, they're
Right.
talking about college. And pretty soon, I had made it all the way and was a great student, and I thought I was going to be successful, but then it turned out I didn't have anything after all that I worked for, or as that's how it felt, at least. I
Yeah.
realized later, it was more about what I learned along the way, of course. Um, but yeah, that was definitely my lowest point by far.
Yeah. Man, dude, I have a very similar experience, not with medical school, but I went to school for 2 years for music education. I got a scholarship to play drums at, university, majored in percussion, all that stuff. And then 2 years later, I felt like I should take some time away from school to just figure out life. I don't know how to explain it. It more of felt like a just one of those decisions I knew I had to make, and I didn't know where I was going, but I felt like I would figure it out. And I took 2 years away from, not 2 years, I'm sorry. I went for 2 years, took a year off. And in that year of being away from school, dude, I felt just like you, man. I was like, what? I worked so hard for this. I had 80 hours of college credit that were essentially just going to go down the drain.
Right.
And that was money that I had borrowed for. I'd borrowed
Yeah.
to go to school for those 2 years that was going to go down the drain. I had nothing to show for it. And my friends that were in music, they went on, they were doing really well. They were getting into their upperclassmen, courses and internships and all that stuff. And I felt like everybody was just passing me by. And I was in a city by myself trying to figure life out, just watching everyone do better than me. And I'm with you, man. It sucked. It sucked to see people going past me while I felt like I was wandering and like I was just being idle. But then it ended up laying such a good foundation for where I ended up. And I learned not to be super cheesy, man, but I had a lot of character development lessons in that season of life, because when you are at that sort of rock bottom place, it teaches you a lot about yourself and you realize who you are. And then for better or for worse, you realize where you have some strengths, but then you realize where you have some growth opportunities. And I think that people that do well are the ones that are willing to look at those growth opportunities, maybe the ugly things in the that they see in the mirror, and they go, you know what, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to get this better. We're going to come up from this. And so you obviously came through that season. I came through my season, but I feel that, dude. I spent those 2 years in school and it went by the wayside. To this day, I still have 80 credit hours in music that are just they're sitting out there at some university. I could transfer right now and be a junior in music, and I'm not, but I feel that. And thanks for sharing that from your perspective, because I know everyone on social media. Let me back up. The vast majority of people on social media like to share their wins, what they're doing
Mhm.
well. Look at me, I've accomplished all this. But I like to hear about where people have had the opposite of that, and how they came through it. So thanks for sharing that. I got one last question for you, and then we'll land the plane. What is your biggest pet peeve? If you can identify one.
What is my biggest pet peeve?
And if
Oh,
nothing,
this goes back to my tweet I had a few days ago. When you just get those DMs, hey brother, and then you just get somebody with this full paragraph, or
yes.
novel, just trying to sell you their service. I mean, nothing gets worse than that.
Oh man. Yes. I love those. Not really, but like I laugh at them because ever since ever I don't know, man, from like when I had 0 to 50 followers, nobody ever DM'd me. Not even the salespeople. And
Yeah,
I think once I crossed 100, I was getting more attention. But yes, I'm getting a lot of those now, where I get the ones now that are like, "Hey Jordan, how would $5,000 a month change your life? An extra
yeah.
$5,000, how would it change your life?" And I'm like, dude, like this is what are we doing here? Like, this is a terrible opener. I don't know. But I feel you on that. That was a short question. So I do have one more. And
Mhm.
I hope that people don't mind. What do people misunderstand about you the most, if anything?
Mm,
This could be people online or in person. Do you ever feel like someone misunderstands things about you?
yeah, totally. So, um, I would say it just comes down to it's something that I recognize as a flaw in myself, but it's also just a perception. Is just people mistake my shyness for me being rude or a mean person.
Mm,
So yeah, a lot of times I don't remember to smile when I'm meeting someone for the first time, or I'm in my head a little bit too much, or whatever it is. Um, it's just I'm shy. I'm not always the 100% most confident person, and just like we all have our flaws.
For sure. I'm with you, man. I understand that. And I ask that because I think people, by and large, can control first impressions, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think when we're going to meet somebody or when we're online, we can control how we come off at first. And I've actually been terrible at that. So I am not good at first impressions. I'm one of the people that the more time I spend with you, the more you're probably apt to like me. A lot of my close friends now were like, dude, when I first met you, like I didn't know how to take you. Now I get it. And so
Yeah.
I like to ask this question because I feel misunderstood from that perspective. And so it
Right.
makes sense. Someone that, like you said, you're an introvert, you can come off shy. They may think that you're being rude or that
Yeah.
something is going wrong on your end, but in actuality, you're introverted,
Yep.
you're shy. You not smiling doesn't mean anything else though. That's good.
Yep.
Okay. I want to land the plane because I know we're at 40 something minutes already. And I wanted to ask this. If anyone was thinking about working with you,
Mm-hmm.
how could they find you? And what would you tell them? If you could sort of short pitch yourself, what would you say to someone that's thinking about working with you?
Yeah, I would say, anyone who's a business owner, entrepreneur, like we can help you a lot, answering the questions you probably didn't even know you had, uh, and just building wealth for the long term. You can find me on Twitter, and it's invested in you. I'm sure you'll put it in the description or the link there,
Yeah.
um, or rogueadvisors.com directly is where you can find us.
Awesome. I love it, man. Last thing, as we come to a close, is there anything you wished I would have asked you? And if so, what was that question and how would you answer it?
I thought you were going to ask me about my worst investment mistake because I've had a lot of them, and and I can tell you a little bit about one, or I'll leave it as a teaser so people will find me on Twitter. So I when I first started investing, I found the only social media I was on at that point was Reddit, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
just finding information. And I came across this little subreddit which only had a few thousand followers at the time, Wall Street Bets.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and so that was one of my first introductions to investing, so to speak, after college, or I guess during college, really. But I threw a lot of money away in options, and selling options in particular, as opposed to buying them. But I'm gonna do a thread about the time I was in 38,000 of margin debt.
Ooh, what a nice teaser. And we're going to have to end there so people can just feel that suspense for a little bit. When's that thread going to drop?
Hopefully in the next week or two.
Okay. Awesome. Everyone listening, stay up to date on Cam's Twitter page so you can see what $38,000 of debt looks like and what it was in. So, dude, thank you for joining this, man. Again, this is all a work in progress. You're my first. I didn't even mention this. You're my first guest. So, thank you for this. We're going to get this out in the next week or so. But it was great connecting with you. I'll see you around on Twitter as always, and I'm sure we'll have many more conversations off air, non-interview style. But thanks again, Cam, for joining. We'll catch you around on Twitter and at rogueadvisors.com. So, anyone that wants to work with Cam, hit him up and take care of you. Thanks, Cam.
Perfect.
See you
Thank you
next
so
time, dude.
much.
That's it for today's show. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you listened this far, you're the real MVP. If you like this episode, please drop us a 5-star review. For every 5-star review I receive, I'll give my dogs a treat. I swear. Lastly, be sure to follow me on Twitter at The Good Steward. That's THA Good Steward. And if you'd like to nominate someone to be interviewed on this podcast, please send me an email. My email is jcgarciamoney@gmail.com. Until next time, everyone, see you later.